Mr. Chair, I have 7 o'clock. You have everybody here that you're going to have this evening on the commission, so the floor is yours. Feel free to proceed.
Okay, we'll call the meeting order at 7 o'clock. And we will start off with roll call.
Gail Linden in the library.
Sarah Gutierrez, Jessica Steinhardt,
Chris Dombieski.
Brandon Weinbaum.
Rachel Seaworth.
And approval of the agenda.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And approval for the minutes for July 28th, 2025.
So moved?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And agenda number 5, matter of the site plan review for the addition for 13135 Kingston. And I'd like to have you, I'm assuming you guys
Yeah.
just introduce yourselves and your project.
I'm Megan Rosenson.
Greg Rosenson. We've been living at Kingston here in Huntington Woods since 2018. So we love the neighborhood, love the area, and given the current market, we really want to stay here. And so we've been planning a bit of a renovation to add some additional square footage and redo some existing parts of our floor plan. So our family, we have a family of 4. So our oldest daughter is Brooklyn, our youngest son is Easton. And growing family, we really want to stay in Huntington Woods and want to expand to, have a little bit more room at home and stay in this community. So that's really kind of at a high level what we're doing. We have our architect, Matt Badreck, here as well that can go through some of the details of what we're looking to do within the current floor plan, but then also expand out with the renovation.
Hank, would you?
Sure. We go ahead and just go through a few of the things. Their maximum height is under the 30 feet that's permitted. Their front yard is at 30 feet existing. The side yards, minimum 5, total 14 is required. They do have a 4.831 side. That's existing. The addition does not encroach. The addition is stepped in, so it doesn't encroach. And they have 21.83 total. The rear yard is required at 35 feet. Their proposed is 57.25. Lot coverage, maximum permitted at 30% is 2457. Proposed is 27.4% at 2246 square feet. And the maximum house size as permitted is 2982 and proposed is 2886. So they are under the maximum house size. The neighboring properties, the west neighbor has the same size lot as does the east neighbor. So they're all they're all 8,190 square feet, so they're good sized lots at 60 by 136.5. The house size at the west neighbor is 1,628 square feet. The subject property is 2886 as what they're planning to build, and the east neighbor is 1621. Neither of those houses have had anything substantial to add on to it, so those are the original sizes of the house as it appears. The style of the houses is a ranch on either side. By virtue of the second floor on this is considered a bungalow. Exterior materials will be brick and siding and brick. The garage is detached on all of those. So those are the one thing that you have for that. Also, we did receive grade certifications, which you have put at your place. That is what's called the preliminary field sheet, which is the actual notation sheet that the surveyor would have taken, or the engineer, for the grades. That get transposed onto a sheet, which is like what you're normally used to getting. So while this looks a little bit odd, it is. It's the step before that you guys never see. So any motion that you get tonight should be predicated upon a final preliminary document that will be to Nowak and Frouse's approval. So having said that, that's the only things that I have. If there's any questions that you have, feel free to ask myself. Their architect is here. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Hank. Mr. Abigail?
Okay. The first question is, Are all of the windows being replaced? I was trying to figure out, some say replaced or not, I'm just curious. It's all new
Yes.
windows,
Yeah.
and so it will be all new, the same style.
Yes.
And I think that you get credit on, maybe you don't on windows. Your survey or your blueprints told me that the garage front was 23 feet, but it didn't measure its depth. So all I can assume is your survey that we received says that the garage is 506 feet. Can you confirm that the depth of the garage to be built, 22?
20 feet,
20 feet?
yeah.
Okay, well then, okay, by 20 feet, okay. So I wanted to know that, because it's not on your blueprint, and it's not on the surveys. And that's the 506 square foot, so it's not, if it's only 20 feet, that's 406 square feet, isn't it?
No.
23 times 20?
20 times 20 is 400.
Right. 23 times 20 is 406, and it says on the blueprint
460, you're right.
that it's 506, so that's why I'm asking.
Well, when we get the final document, it's gonna have those dimensions on it.
Well, I'm only taking into effect as to what part of the backyard is 50% or less of impervious materials and so on. So I want to know, is this, you have a large lot, and I don't know what the maximum garage size you can have in an R1C is.
650 square
Okay,
feet.
so this 506 would be under it. But
Substantially.
that's why I'm asking,
Right.
what's the size of the garage? Because when it tells me 506,
Sorry, correction, 22 feet deep.
okay. Okay, so that is the 506. And that's basically the questions that I have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
I have no questions right now.
Jessica?
Yeah, so the side yard, proposed being less than 5 feet, that's existing
The
house.
the 4.83
Yeah.
is the short side. That's already existing.
Right,
So they step in on the addition part of it, so that brings it to the 5 feet. So they then qualify for what they've got.
so there's no need for.
There's no variance. There's no
Okay.
variance.
And then I was trying to understand, is the front of the house being changed besides the dormer? Were you changing the, no?
No,
Like
we're just
the-
adding some stone to the front,
Okay,
to the front entry, and replacing the front door with a wider side light and door panel that match.
okay, but otherwise, it's not.
Correct.
No change. So, there's no other questions I had.
Brandon?
I've got no questions, thank you.
April?
My only question has to do with the rear yard. Hank, and this is mostly for you. We're at 35 feet required, and the proposal is almost double, right?
57, yeah. Hold on just a second. Thank you. I'm sorry, let me get to the page that I can help you with. So the line that you see, that's the building envelope.
Are we
You see
on
the dotted
page
line?
2?
Yes.
Yes.
So the dotted line, they're showing a 35-foot rear setback. So when you take this and you measure that out, that came out to 57.
Right, the minimum rear is 35.
Right, so he only drew the setback line. He didn't
Right.
draw that because it blocks what it is. And that's the existing. So that was part of the issue that we had with the survey. And the survey needs to, yeah, I mean, the survey will show that, the survey will show Gail's dimension question. But the numbers bear out. If you do the math and you subtract the width of the length of the lot, the depth of the lot, minus the house, minus the front yard, which you know, that what gives you the rest of it.
questions at this point. We'll open it up to public participation. Just come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Susan Considine. I live at 12727 LaSalle. So on 22723, I know this is an R1C house, but it's in an R1D area. Hank said, I know all of you except for Todd and Blake live in the Bronx subdivision, and those are 50 by 120 lots typically, so the flow of stormwater is essentially very important in how it's managed. And also, Article 7 that covers site plan review says, the site plan review requirements are intended to provide a consistent and uniform method of review of proposed development plans to ensure full compliance with the regulations in this ordinance, and then further down, to achieve innovative stormwater management solutions. So I was surprised when I looked at the plans. This is more about the process than your house. Your house looks great. I'm envious of your mudroom. The architectural plan was supposed to include, under D3, location of gutters and downspouts, and the only place I saw downspouts was on the existing house. So I'm looking at this and saying, where are the downspouts? How did it even get this far to you? And there's no indication of downspouts. And also, I drove around the property, and the property behind it has a garage with just a drip edge at the very minimum setback. So now you're going to have two kissing cousins there. And I'm wondering, where are the downspouts on the garage? Is it a drip edge? And also, you're adding a huge amount of concrete here, because now you're adding a big garage that's impermeable, a lot of driveway, a lot of patio. And my question is, what's going to be the high point of the driveway? Are you going to try and get all the water from the garage all the way to the street? Because I was told recently with the garage behind me that's dumping water toward me, I said, why a gabled garage at the property line? They should either get it to the street or drop it around the back and get it in their yard. And the zoning guy said, well, we don't want them sending it all to the street. So who gets to send to the street and who doesn't? So my question is, where are the downspouts? What's the 50% lot coverage? I didn't see any reference to that. I see when you put it on an addition, you're bumping things back, and then now your 50% is even lower proportionally than when it was before you put the addition on. So we're counting on you as neighbors to these new builds and major remodels to watch out for stormwater. So I hope maybe we can hear about that. What's the percent of the lot coverage, and where are the downspouts, and where's all that water going to go from the patio? Are any of these downspouts going to go onto impervious surfaces? Do you guys know, based on the plans? Thank you.
Any other public participation? Close public participation. And looking for further discussion or a motion on the site plan.
So Hank, there's a final version of this, not that you were.
There's going to be a version of that. Any motion that you put forward tonight should be that the final, and again, the final is a preliminary version because Noack and Frous will look at it at the end as well. So a couple points. One is the garage, even though it's here, doesn't have to be here. You don't need to go to site plan review for a garage. So having said that, whether they decide to build that all at the same time or not, I don't know. But they will, their final document will be a survey. I mean, the survey that's sealed here is sealing the preliminary grades. That's all he's doing. He's certifying that he shot these grades and these are the grades. That'll come onto a document which is more consistent with what you normally see. I was under the impression, or I believe we had a discussion where it was going to be probably the middle of this week before they could get that to us. At that point in time, that would go to Noack and Frous. This wouldn't go to Noack and Frous. That's the document that would go to Noack and Frous. If it's your inclination to put project forward it should be done with the codicil that any type of approval is dependent on complying with NOAC and Frouse's review of the document. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll just take NOAC and Frouse's comments, make them as stipulations for the building permit, and there you go, so there's nobody that doesn't understand that. So that's worked well for us recently. So that's where we're at with this. If you-
Out of curiosity, Hank, is it the planning department or is it Noack and Frouse that looks at the rear yard and figures out what percentage of 50%?
It's the survey. That information should be provided to us
It's subject
on
to the survey.
Right, and this is not complete, admittedly not complete. But the document that we should get later in the week should be complete.
Because, I mean, one of the interesting things I saw in here on this survey, that it says that this is the assumed location of utility easement. So we don't know that it is or it isn't, and it looks like, I don't know, they're building it 6 feet out, from that, because that's usually, a 5-foot easement. To tell you the truth, I just found out last year that my backyard doesn't have a utility easement. So not every home or lot in Huntington Woods has a utility easement in it.
Right, but the utility easement is also the same as a 6-foot minimum setback from the
Correct.
city of Huntington Woods. So whether it's 6 foot for the easement or it's 6 foot for the setback for the accessory structures, it's still 6 feet.
So it would be subject to Noack and Frouse getting the survey confirming that the rear lot coverage is is less than 50% impervious material, and in addition to any motion that we make that's subject to a final survey, it would include that it has to maintain stormwater so as not to discharge on neighboring properties. Is that correct?
And if that's part of the motion that you make, which it should be, then that would be correct.
Okay.
In this case, that's going to be important because I don't have a final document on this.
You mentioned 6 feet setback. Is that also 6 feet on the side of the fence line?
3 on the side.
Just the 3 on the side?
3 on the side, 6 on the back. Typically what happens is with the 3-foot setback on the side, which is consistent with what we do here in Huntington Woods, that would end up requiring a firewall. So they'll end up building that, and their builder will tell them that there's gotta be, they have to do the rock wall and the sheet rock on one side. There can't be a plug on that side, and that's not your door side for your man door unless you go ahead and put in a fire door.
Can I ask a question of the residents and the builder? Is your intention to build the entire project at once, the garage and the house renovation at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the plans as submitted with some additional markup required on the plans regarding the garage, and additionally getting it's not just a survey, is this a topography survey?
It's a topographical boundary survey.
Subject to getting a topographical boundary survey with a seal on it to be submitted to Noack and Frouse for approval, and that our approval will be subject to the fact that it gets Noack and Frouse approval, and that my motion to build the house shall include that any motion, or that it should include maintaining stormwater so as not to discharge on neighboring properties.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment before somebody goes ahead and seconds that, assuming that they will. The city would be the ones who would be submitting it to Noack and Frouse, so they would submit it actually to the city, and we would transmit that to Noack
Okay.
and Frouse.
It comes to us first and we get it to them and they approve.
That is correct.
But with all the dimensions on it also,
That
on
is
our
correct.
plans that I'd like to have, that we have plans so we know that it's as built.
Okay. Second?
Second the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you like your plans as well?
Sure.
I took 2 pages off, so we can,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Sorry about the poor. This isn't our usual habitat.
All right, moving on to item number 6, matter of public hearing, corner lots.
Mr. Chair, at this point in time, for those of you that don't know, I'd like to introduce our city attorney, Matt Zaleski, who is here to help walk us through these ordinances. I know that there were some questions on those, and some people wanted some different graphics put in, which we have inserted, and numbered appropriately so that they fit with the ordinance. Having said that, some of our biggest issues that we had were technical front yard, practical front yard, what's what, who's where, and what's going on. So what we've done with this is that the ordinance is fairly similar, but we've put in different graphics that allow you to show short side, long side, the practical front, practical rear, technical front, technical rear, so that everybody knows what's going on. So that's why there's 4 of them, because it seemed to us to be the best way to explain it. I will tell you that Matt and I had many conversations over this and trying to figure out how do we do this. So having said that, drawing these out really, we feel, helps with that. We've gone through this, and this was postponed from the last time we had public hearing to this time. So if there's any questions at all that you have, your options are tonight to approve it as it is, to go ahead and approve it with any amendments that you might want, or to table it, go, if there's some changes that have to be made. I would tell you that if there's changes that have to be made, you're gonna have to articulate those specifically. And then Matt's here, because otherwise we end up it's a repetitive cycle. So with that, Matt, if you have anything that you want to add to that?
No, I appreciate that. I would just echo the fact that for the simple thing we're trying to do with this ordinance,
Right.
that is ease up the zoning regulations on corner lots so that people don't have to come for variances when they have double frontages. It's surprisingly difficult to explain. So we are happy to hear your reviews of where we're at this point and entertain any questions or revisions.
The graphs really help.
Yes.
I have a suggestion in the layout of the ordinance itself. We go through the verbiage of A, B, C, D, and have 4 drawings. I would prefer that the drawings were in front of the verbiage instead of behind it, because as you're reading it, you're gonna have to flip to the back to look at it. So my suggestion is either put all 4 of them up on top, or put, 2.02.1, below that one, and then the other ones are either 2s or 3s, and put those between them, but have them close to it or near it, so that we don't have to flip a page and say, oh, yeah, that's this way. I want to see it when I read it, not read it and then look for it.
Mr. Chair, I have no objection to that, Matt.
Perfectly reasonable.
That's a reasonable request. We can do that.
Sarah,
Yes.
did you have?
Oh, did I have any questions? I don't right this second, but I may as we continue talking about it.
Jessica?
So I think it's on page 2, the side street side restrictions. So just to make sure that that's clear, I think just funny, kind of goofy language. So this is stating that the side yard that's adjacent to a street on a corner lot that is the platted front. So
Yeah.
I'm struggling, I need the remedial, so if I'm looking at figure 2.022, how do I know what is the platted front, right? Is the platted front's not always the short side?
Yes, it is.
It's always the short side?
Yes.
Okay, so the platted front is always the short side, maybe that would be helpful statement for the laywomen in the community, so that the platted front, synonymous with the short side, so that that's the side street. So when we talk about the side street side restrictions, the things that are prohibited are specifically on the short side of the property.
That makes sense, and, you know, maybe it's as simple as amending the figure to put short side / platted front.
We can do that.
Okay. I think that for me makes it just a little bit more, a little bit easier to understand.
Okay.
I don't have any comments.
Okay. April?
The technical front yard corner lot on page 1, just a little confused about the definition. You have the front yard of a corner lot measured from the front lot line with the least amount of frontage upon the street. Feels like there's like measured from here to here, as, you know what, does that make sense? Like there's the second point where it needs to be measured from to in the sentence? Like you're telling me that from here to here, the front yard of a corner lot is measured from the front line with the least amount of frontage upon the
Right,
street.
to the-
So the street is where it ends, is what.
Right, we
I
had
guess,
that
I guess
it
the
was to
sentence
the
is just like not making sense
Front
in
of
my
the
brain.
main building.
Correct. The reason that we did that was to keep structures out of the front, out of what would be the front for everybody else on the block.
Okay.
I agree, it's not really a finished sentence.
Yeah, I just.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
I think, so what would it be, Sarah and April, if you had, what would the language be that would make it comfortable for you with that? Because the fixes that I'm hearing tonight are all easy fixes. Matt, are you reading that the same way?
Yeah, I'm just noting that, you know, in looking at the strike-through version, we had originally had the language in the nearest point of the main building, which I'm trying to remember why it was that that language got struck. Because would that cure, if we restored that language, would that clear the concern? So you're measuring from the lot line to the building.
Okay, so.
Because there's kind of no ending.
And that's the yard.
So I think that's what we were trying to do with the graphics, and that's what we had here. So it shows you the technical front yard. The definition of the front yard is the front of the building to the lot line. Okay?
Right.
So that's why the front of the building was in there the last time.
I think that's what they're saying is missing from the definition, is the
Then we
front
should,
of the
then we should
from-
put that back
Yeah,
in,
the
because
front
whether
lot
it's the.
line with the
whether it's-
least amount of frontage upon the street to the front of the building.
Right, and whether that's the practical or technical front yard, the same thing would apply.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything to either side of that would actually be a side yard or practical or technical side yard. So would that be something that you folks would be amenable to, is if we put that language back in? Would that suffice for you guys?
Would we change the word "and" to the word "to"? So the least amount of frontage upon the street to the nearest point of the main building. That's the front lot,
I'm okay with that.
That works for me.
Yeah.
rather than "and."
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And then same for the practical front yard.
Right.
In each section.
We would make the linguistics the same on
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, do 2 in that one also.
Just
Right.
the main terms, do we use main building to mean a dwelling?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
For my lay term brain, are we using the term main building? Because if I'm reading this as, as a neighbor trying to figure out if it applies to me, when I read main building, I don't think a residential structure. So is it synonymous with a dwelling? Are we using it synonymously, main building and
You
dwelling?
could use it synonymous with dwelling, or you could use it, or we could change it to principal structure. Whatever language you feel. I mean, we want to make this readable, and we want to make this understandable. And it is intriguing as it is, and how the effort in wanting to solve what seems to be a simple problem, what Matt alluded to, is this is no simple thing to write. So
And I think
if you would
main
prefer
building is
principal
confusing.
structure, we could do that.
If we change to principal structure, do we then have to change the parts of the ordinance that are not redlined?
I'm sorry?
Would we then have to change the parts of the ordinance that are not redlined?
I think the
So-
terms are synonymous.
Okay.
Matt, do you think that's the same way, or do you want to change
Well,
it to
yeah,
be
we do have
consistent?
some existing language that refers to the main building, so we would need to make that
So we'll just
consistent.
make that
Yeah.
change to everything. So is it the pleasure of the commission that those be changed to principal structure? Is that the terminology you would see?
Then the little boxes would say principal structure rather
Well, we'll
than main
change,
building.
yeah, we'll change that.
Then every other part of the ordinance would have to, because I see
Yes.
building in like every other section.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, even when we're defining yard, there's main building, right? The open space in the same lot with a dwelling or main building. So, or the principal structure.
Any other?
I think that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very good, that's why we do this. So, Mr. Chair, I would just for comment on this, is that any motion to recommend, which is what this would be, because the planning commission would recommend this to the city commission, it would be with those changes. So those would be articulated in the motion, and then on the rewrite, that'll be done between Matt and myself. We'll have those before it goes to the city commission. Obviously, you have somebody at the city commission that would be able to fly spec it because they're intimately familiar with the creation of the ordinance. So having said that, I just wanted to let you know that that would be the procedure for this.
When is the next city commission meeting?
It's next month, and it will actually be, I believe, at the city hall, which would be an absolute pleasure. We appreciate the room that the library's given us, but there's no place like home.
Okay.
Looking for a motion. What's up? Oh, I'm sorry, yep, you're right.
You-
Open up to public participation.
You know, your planning commission review submission checklist says failure to submit all items and all information in this list will result in delay of application until it is complete. And I'm just shocked when you guys have number 48, or here, I would like to, you guys can pass these around.
Mr. Chair, is this relating to
Is
this?
this related to,
Or if this is
Is there
not,
going to be
re-
another public
Yes.
comment?
yeah.
Okay.
At the end,
Well, you can still
absolutely.
pass those around. I'll make the
Absolutely.
public comment after.
So,
any other public participation? All right, we'll close public participation. And bring it back to the commission for,
I can try to make a motion.
yep.
All right. I think a motion to approve with the conditions of the following. We're going
with all due respect, it'd be to recommend.
to recommend, yes, to recommend to the commission. We're going to change the main building to principal structure. We're going to restore in 1.A section the nearest point on the main building, but of course, principal structure. We're going to also change the "and" to 2 on both section A and B of 1. We are also going to plan to move the pictures to the associated sections, so forth following, to make it easier to read. And we are going to include the plotted front as part of the short side on the pictures.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7, matter of public hearing for definitions for an accessory structure.
Mr. Chair, at this point, if I can start us off here before giving it over to Matt. There was a few things that we had done, and we had stricken a couple things, but a lot of the concern that the Planning Commission had is that they didn't feel as comfortable with this definition of accessory structures until they knew where the front yards were going to be and where the side yards and rear yards were going to be. Now that we've taken care of that, this actually comes to you as a public hearing so that you can then have any discussion that you want, if there's terms or if there's things that you need to have changed prior to that. And then, of course, you have to take public comment on this as well. Having said that, there wasn't anything really changed from the last time to this time. All the strikeouts are still there. You still have the copy of the strikeouts, and you have the clean copy. If you have any questions, I'm sure that Matt or myself would be happy to answer them. And then, of course, there's always room for healthy discussion on the ordinance.
Any questions?
Let somebody go on first, and let me look at something. I didn't put a note on it.
Sarah, did you have anything?
No,
Okay.
So a question for you, Matt. So some of the landscape feature language that talks about what can and cannot be put there, the amount of yardage that can be covered, all that stuff. So can you just sort of talk through, I don't know if this is for you to answer, Matt, or for Hank, but how current properties may be grandfathered in that already have some of these things or lot coverage already done prior to the amendments being made to the ordinance?
Well, I'll let Hank speak to the extent that any of these features might have previously been regulated as an accessory structure. This is an interesting situation because we really did not previously address these types of landscape features in the way that we're doing in this case. So to the extent that there are these features existing in people's properties that have not gone through a permitting process and such, there wouldn't necessarily be a clear point at which to reference them as being grandfathered because they simply were not addressed in the code.
Right.
But
So-
if they had been previously permitted in some way, we could track that.
Yeah, and there would be no doubt because there's going to be an approval date on this. So while we do have admittedly some larger art projects in people's yards, and there are some things that were there, we also have the Zoning Board of Appeals, which has ruled that these types of things are permissible and are considered a landscape feature. And part of that, part of the good part of that is that this gives us a whole nother category that we didn't have before. So as a result with that, it allows us to take a look at things where it was not black and white, where you either had point A or point B, and you can't draw, if you can't draw the line between them, it was wrong. So now there's an area that we have kind of like a catch-all for that. As to the grandfather for that, so if something is new and something comes up and we get that, how we do it, how we get it is A, through code enforcement, somebody will complain about it. The date that thing comes in and complains, if that's after the date that the ordinance was in, then okay. If it's done before the date that the ordinance was in, then at that point in time, we would consider it grandfathered, but it's not the intent of the city to go back and have people remove art from their yards or plantings or decorative lawn things that may not have been enumerated prior to this, it's only for what's going on from this point forward. We can't go back and retro, make all these people do all that. That's not the intent of the ordinance. The intent of the ordinance is to go ahead and provide some definitions so that we don't end up with 20 of these things in somebody's front yard to one point where it becomes, okay, they've got a piece of art that's really very nice, that's fine, that's their taste, may not be mine, but that's okay. To where they've got 20 of them in the front yard, and at some point in time, that becomes, which would be to some people attractive, and other people would not be attractive. So, having said that, that's where we would draw the line on this, and a lot of it's gonna have to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but the effective date of the ordinance is gonna help us determine what is and is not grandfathered.
You're right, absolutely, yeah. This is unique, because this is not being enacted as an attempt to crack down on these types of structures. It's
Not at
really
all.
an attempt to try to make it, again, easier to define these, give enough definition in here to make it clear how the city will exercise its discretion in addressing these issues. And, yeah, to the extent that structures existed prior to the ordinance lawfully, they would be.
They would be
grandfathered.
legal conforming because they're not non-conforming until the ordinance would go into
Right.
effect, so. And actually, the ordinance is intended to be more lenient
Yeah.
than it was before. So whereas before, they would say, no, this is definitely not, this is definitely a structure. You can't have this now, but you can have one of them. So that's the type of thing that they're looking at with this. So having said that, if there's any other questions with that, or if there's a way you think that we can make that clearer or cleaner, I'm all ears.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, so if I have a house and I have 10 raised garden boxes on
Currently?
my front lawn, right, and that's currently my house, so I'm not in violation of this ordinance because it existed prior to the ordinance being passed. If I sell my house,
That is correct.
then is the new owner of that house subject to the ordinance as it is stated today, or to the way in which the property was maintained prior to the ordinance being revised?
The way that it's maintained, however, I would tell you that the issue becomes, once you take it out, it's like you become a legal non-conforming situation. Once you take it out, like if you take out 3 of those 10 planter boxes that you have, you lose your vested right to have it. It's like any non-conforming ordinance, or it's like any non-conformity. The
You
intent
repair
of-
them rather than remove them.
Let me finish, please. So when you have a nonconformity, the idea is that eventually the nonconformity is supposed to go away. And this is more towards what the city would like to look at. They're not saying with this ordinance that you can't have it. In fact, they're saying you can have it. But what they're saying is you can't have 10 of them, pick a number, over what's enumerated. So having said that, yes. I mean, you're going to be, that's at the point where, and I really hate the term grandfather because it's legal non-conforming or conforming. It's one of the two, right? So having said that, that's where that would fall for me as far as my interpretation. If Matt has anything that he would like to add to that, again, fine, but I think that pretty well covers what it is. Again, the goal here is not to make people go back and do this, but if somebody comes back and, says, well, the day after the city commission approves this, assuming approval, then, or that they may want to modify it, but assuming approval on that, and then somebody, that we find out is working that day, starting on a project that has 10 raised flower pies, 10 raised boxes with brick structures and that, yeah, we would stop that.
And then, sorry, the only other question I have.
You can have as many as you want.
What is your plan to educate the city residents about changes to the ordinance?
So typically, here's what happens. This is on the agenda for this meeting. This will be on the agenda for the city commission meeting. It will be codified to the city ordinance. And then what we're going to try to do with all of our ordinance changes is make sure that they also get published, they have to get published in the newspaper, so that's gonna happen anyway. The reality of that is unfortunately nobody reads it. So we'll also be putting it on the website, and then we'll also put it in our e-blast so the residents can have, they can look at it. And then also there'll be a copy of it on the cable channel.
Just going back to that, so if you have those garden boxes, because some people have them in their yard on the ground,
Yes.
like multiple, so that would not be allowed, but if they were raised up, that would be allowed?
Well, it's, yes. So,
Right.
no, yes and yes. So to the extent that they are not raised,
Right.
those are not governed by this. Those are
Correct.
allowed. And to the extent that they are raised, they're subject to this, so they're limited.
Okay, so I guess my question is there ever a point that we put like a maximum number amount of how many are in someone's yard? Because I feel like if we're, you know, helping guide people with sidewalks where they can have fences and not have fences, but then somebody else could put, you know, 10 garden boxes in the front of their house, which is, you know, could be a lot, like, or is that
Yeah, so.
telling people like what to do, like, is that not acceptable?
So as we wrote this, so the raised boxes, they would be limited to one in the front yard of the lot, but the ones touching the ground would not be limited in number. Now, that's something that the commission wanted to explore, that would be certainly your discretion, but we're also trying to capture the fact that, you know, you've got people who are putting movable planters down and statues and whatever, and that's where we're drawing the line. The difference between something that's touching the ground versus something that is permanently affixed. And I get the argument that a flower planter that's connecting, you know, raised on the ground could arguably be affixed, but it's the fact that it's one with the earth, and I know Hank had some concerns about right to farm and
Well,
such.
that's because there was a case in Oak Park
But
where the right to.
there
farm
are
act-
some weird cases
Yeah.
that come out.
Or like you can
situations
have
like
a
this.
certain amount in your front yard and the rest in your backyard, or?
So I think most people do it because they're getting the sun in their front yard, right? And they're
Oh,
growing
that
their
makes
garden in the
sense.
front.
Yeah.
And I think and now that I understand whether it's raised or affixed to your lawn makes the difference of whether you're governed by it. And it looks like you are creating limitations on page 2, where you're telling people that the landscape feature can be no bigger than 3 by 3 by 2, right? And then, so that itself is going to limit how many they can have? Is that the right section that I'm looking at? The front yard permanent residential landscape
Yeah,
feature?
well, it's one permanent residential landscape feature subject to that size limitation.
And this is only if it's raised?
Right.
Okay.
What do we define as permanent? 6 months, a year?
Well, that's going to the definition where we're saying it's a fixed.
So if I have you're saying affixed as in I've anchored, bolted it to the ground?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, so these planter boxes that are sitting above that are not affixed to the ground do not comply?
But if they're on stilts or, you know.
They're on stilts, but they move.
But they're movable?
They have wheels and they're on
Then
stilts.
they're not a permanent structure? So they don't comply with this, and I could have 100 of them in my front yard?
Unless you want to change that, the way that I read that, the way that the intent was to eliminate the possibility of that.
I agree with that.
So
but I'm
if you
just-
feel that that language needs to be a little bit more specific, or another sentence has to be added on there to be a little bit more clear, to add a little more clarity to the situation, we should do that now. Now would be the time to do that.
Yeah, and this is useful because you're reading into seeing the possibilities of this.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a loophole, but, you know, flexibility we're trying to build in there, but it's reasonable to think along those lines.
To go along with Brandon's comment, my comment on the page is, there are a lot of people who have planter boxes on stilts, on wheels, in their front yard, and they'll move them away for the season or whatever else and take them out again? And do we regulate those? But more importantly, under page 2, subsection 40.605B, it talks about how close you can get to a neighbor's driveway with that material. If it's a permanent one, you have to be 10 feet away. But if you're a movable one, you don't have any restriction, and I think you should. I don't think you should be able to put a planter box right up against somebody else's driveway, because they should be able to open their door and get out.
So let me just go through that, because we already have fences, walls, and hedges, which is in section 10. And section 10 says you have to be able to open your car door and step out. So it would be the same as this. As far as interpreting it, like if we were going to, like if the ordinance officer was gonna go out, they would look for that.
But it's not a fence or a wall.
If it was restricted, no, but not everything is like that. You can apply the same principle to that, and that's how that would be. If that's something that you feel would do that, trust me, anything that you do to add to this makes it a lot easier when you do go to enforce this. So if you feel that that's something that we should say, no, no structure should be within 10 feet of a neighbor's driveway, we can do that. Or no, none of this should be within 10 feet of a neighbor's driveway. We can do that.
And section 10, what is the current?
It's like 3 feet off the top of my head is what it is, so that you can open your car door and step out.
So, and that applies to your neighbor's yard?
That applies to your neighbor's yard. It's kind of a grace thing. Everybody steps on everybody's property.
Garage that we just approved. I'm wondering if 10 feet is too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think for
We
somebody
can always
else-
amend it or add to it. If we put it in now, we may think that it's too much, and maybe we come back and we add it if we have a problem. But I think that we consider, or we look at it, or we know where in the ordinances we can go to try to enforce those kinds of things.
Well, ordinances are a living, breathing document. I mean, there's no ordinance that isn't at any point in time reviewable. So a lot of times we'll have stuff where it comes in and we'll say, well, you know what, we gotta fix this. Times have changed, people have changed. And part of the revisions for ordinances, master plans, whatever it is that people will come in and it will change. What may have not been absolutely a non-starter 10 years ago is now something that everybody wants. And part of the city's responsibility is to the extent that it doesn't devalue property, is to cater to the, is to cater to the opinions of the residents. I mean, they are, after all, who everybody's here for. So having said that, that's a good thing. As long as you can temper that with the fact that not every citizen is gonna be as well-versed in planning. So you do run into some situations where you might make a decision that might be not compatible with what some people are thinking, but by the same token, you still have to make that call. So unless you want to add some verbiage to here, and I hear that what Brandon and April were saying about like the sentences and maybe adding that sentence, I think that's doable. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just to lock up more appropriacy in what we're
So
talking
what
about
is the verbiage, because he's gonna add this to this, so what are we asking him to
Would it
add?
make sense to create another section, because we have landscape features, permanent residential? Would it make sense to make a landscape features
Temporary?
temporary
That's what I was
residential?
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we are in the 40-6.0, page 205, if we are going to create limitations, instead of telling people that they can only have one, we can dictate what the limiting size is and stick to the front yard, temporary residential, whatever word you use. Features are limited to an area of 3 feet by 2. I agree that 10 feet seems maybe too big, especially for the temporary residential landscape features, and create something similar like B for the temporary features.
I think that makes sense.
And for that, you wanted to use a 6-foot dimension?
6-foot dimension.
You mean?
Setback.
Next to the
The
driveways,
setback.
for example.
So, sorry.
I think so.
In section 4605A4, already talks about the intensity of the side lot line, either 4 or 5 feet. So would we not, just for the sake of consistency, would we apply that to front yards and temporary structures?
I think you pull that, Matt, help me out here. I think if you pull that out, take out permanent residential landscape feature and put in maybe seasonal residential landscape feature or something of that order, and then put it into the new section that you're talking about, that may be helpful. And I think we're getting to a point with this ordinance where I might actually, and this is against a lot of what my normal thought process is, let's write this up with your information and let's bring this back one more time, and perhaps it might be prudent to table it so that you can see the final. This is different than the first one, where we've already did this. And then we can rewrite this with what your suggestions are, and you can actually see it before you recommend it to the city commission, and that might be prudent. What do you think, Matt? Is
Yeah, I
that-
think that makes sense, and I appreciate pointing out the weirdness of the A4 and the B3. And a lot of this 40-605 is inspired by or mirroring accessory structures
Yes.
provisions, which may not be a perfect fit for, especially now as we're separating out permanent and temporary features. So I think that we can clean that up a bit.
So, Mr. Chair, if that's, if that's consistent with what the pleasure of the board, of what the commission is, at this point in time, my suggestion would be is to ask for a motion to table this until the next meeting, at which point in time a rewrite can be reintroduced with the information that the commission has suggested for us.
So moved.
May I ask one last question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have
Sure.
a question
Sorry.
too. Yeah.
So I noticed that in structure accessory, you moved the lamppost to the permanent residential section. But signs was eliminated completely. I'm not sure if you're encompassing signs as movable yard art or decorative objects, or it's in another section that I don't see.
No, that's a really good question. The reason, I struck that because there is a completely separate sign ordinance that
Right.
covers all
And-
that.
and-
So it made no sense to put them in.
Everything is governed under that, and then you have First Amendment considerations for
Right.
people with signs in their yards, so.
I had the same question, April, so we're on
Thank
the
you.
same page. Okay.
One
All right.
more
Yeah.
question, just, I'm curious, only because there are some individuals, and we were talking about side lots and stuff. For A5, where we talk about shall not be permitted at all, I'm curious if we would be willing to consider a variant in the sense of maybe like a smaller 3x3 or some type of small, if all they have is that like driveway and space, if we can maintain the 5 feet. Are we saying that they're never going to be able to put anything on their side?
But what I
Side
bel-
yards?
What I believe we're saying is that that's what the zoning board of appeals is for. So if there is gonna be a
Okay.
variance from the ordinance, if there's a practical difficulty or hardship that can be demonstrated by an applicant, then the zoning board of appeals would have the opportunity to react to that.
Okay.
But having said, that you can write anything you want, but anything you write that goes into chapter 40 is appealable to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
So that's where that is. At some point, with all due respect, we're gonna have to not second guess the intent of what it is that we're trying to do here and let it go. If we find out that, yeah, this is a problem, and that's why we have our joint yearly meeting with the zoning board of appeals. And if the joint meeting says, yeah, you know what, you guys passed this and we're having problems with it, great. If you don't hear anything about it for 3 years, you're not having a problem. So, I guess that's where I would suggest that we leave it, and let's do the rewrite and see. And then maybe once you see a clean copy, and that doesn't preclude you from making a change at the next meeting either. It just means you're gonna get a copy more consistent with the information that you've given us to work on tonight.
And Matt, would you be coming back next month
I'd be happy to.
Okay. as well?
We like
Walk
his
us through this?
Unless someone
Thank
tells
you.
me not to.
All right, perfect. Okay, so Gail, I think you have the motion.
I have my motion to table this until the next meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. So that brings us to public participation. We'll limit it to 3 minutes.
I don't know if you all got the handout that I have. You know, I'm just shocked.
We
Uh,
we did not.
Oh.
Was this
Oh,
the-
sorry.
No, it's a new one.
The update
You know,
of the master plan.
when you have, yeah, so I see some new faces here that weren't they were here last month, and I had FOIA'd what is the Planning Commission doing on 48, 13, and 12, which are all the action topics that are related to residential stormwater management. And I had to dig through everything, so I did my best summary of, you know, the only 48 is your high priority and 13 is your medium. And I'm suggesting you combine 12 and 13 and work on those. And then I also added to the back of it, you know, that you're not creating anything anew. I put Ann Arbor has done something. They have some of the exact same language as 48. Action Plan Topic 48, so I just put that there. Oak Park is doing something too. But again, 48 says, other requirements could include requiring residential properties that add over a certain threshold of square footage to show retention of first flush storm events for the net increase of impervious surface they add. And I'm just shocked that you can approve a house when the bare bones, it shouldn't have come in. The architect didn't even put downspouts on it. And I've been looking through aerial view Google Maps and looking at houses where it's like, wow, how'd that get approved? The whole backyard's covered, or it sure looks like it's more than 50%. And I found houses where there's no record of the first drainage review by Noack and Frost, but there's the final one, the as-built one, and Noack and Frost just says, it appears to contain its stormwater. And then I found another one that had the pre-built survey, but no as-built. And then when I drive by the property, the downspouts were supposed to be in front of the garage. Now they're in the back of the garage. And there's a huge empty lot behind it. So you don't think that property is donating some stormwater absorption capacity? So I appreciate your service. I know it's a volunteer position, but we are relying on you to take stormwater seriously. The citizens told you in that master plan that it was important. So I'd like to suggest that Brad and Hank give you.
30 seconds.
Okay. He did a lesson on blueprint reading, give you one on grade reading, and then I'll donate these to the city. You guys do a study and you show which way the water's going and then hold it up at the end and see how much you match. Learn where the stormwater is going, because there are people in the community who get affected when you're not watching over where it goes. And also, are you gonna allow everybody to slope from their garage all the way to the street?
All right, thank
So-
you.
Charles Scott, 1318 Talbot. I just want to add a couple comments. One is this issue of stormwater management is a serious issue in the community. I have a list of 25 people who've written to me about the nightmares they're experiencing with their backyards, many of whom have spent thousands of dollars to try to salvage their backyards. And there also seems to be, and that packet that you got is in a sense enabling citizens to know what their rights are in terms of stormwater management. And so one case, and it's not atypical, is an individual whose neighbor has a garage, a driveway, a patio, and a swimming pool. Surprise, surprise, he gets a lot of their water into his backyard. What can he do? Does he have to spend, as this individual did, spend $14,000 to try to salvage it? Secondly, if that were done because of negligence on the part of the city, what liability is there for the city as well? I assume you have some opinions on that. But I think we have many cases in Michigan, in the city, where residents are struggling with stormwater runoff from their neighbor's property. In many cases, I'm sure the neighbor had no clue that what they were doing would damage their neighbor. But again, it gets back to this issue of whether it's been done for 10 years or 15 years. If I buy this house and my backyard's being flooded, what is my remedy? What can I do? So this is a big issue. Some of you know about that from the city commission meeting. It's not going to go away. And I'm just suggesting that you, as the Commission on Planning, be sort of ahead of the curve and sort of thinking about this more carefully, and particularly look at the issue of information sharing and education for people to know that. Also, just as a related aside, it would be worthwhile for you as the Planning Commission to start thinking about building codes and trying to move forward towards a more efficient building code so we have a better environment as well. So, and there's lots of resources on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? I keep it short and sweet. I'm at 10125 Elgin. Also, I'm buying a house at 13128 Tablet. Do you guys allow French drains? Because I hear that everybody talking about stormwaters. Do y'all allow the French drains to go in to the ground from your downspouts and everything else?
Not into the, are you talking about into the sewer line that's next to
Chair,
the
this is
house?
supposed to be a comment section.
Oh, my bad, my bad. My bad.
I'll answer it tomorrow. I know how to get ahold of it.
All right. Any other public participation? Closed public participation.
Can I say something as a public and not as a member? Because I found out something at a city commission meeting the other day, and it was on our agenda as a high agenda on the, master plan. Safety to schools, that the light is going in over at City Hall and the fire department. It was news to me to find out that the driveway on 11 Mile Road will be closed to the public, and there will only be one in and out to City Hall. And I think that it would be wise to let people, one, know in advance, and let them know a little more about the light that's coming, because the school year's just started, and they can look forward to, I think, what is it, anticipated October? Is we're supposed to,
At this point, yes, provided everything goes according to plan. For those of you that have seen Rawhorn out there working, that's what all that commotion is by City Hall. They're doing directional boring underneath 11 Mile. There's stanchions going on in Berkeley, stanchions going on in Huntington Woods. Huntington Woods will control the light as far as that goes, and public safety will control the light. Part of the thing is that if we close that area, and this has been out there for months, but if we close that area, then it also eliminates one mast arm from the cost and effectiveness of putting this
it eliminates what?
a mast arm. So that's one of the things that they looked at when they did this. Part of this money that we have is for grant money. We received $100,000 from the state of Michigan for this. Having said that, the rest of the money is matched, was approved by the city commission, who has a definite interest in making sure that the youth of the city of Huntington Woods who cross that and play Frogger to get across 11 Mile have safe means of travel across 11.
I agree, but I had no idea that it was being closed, so.
It's been on the plan since the get-go. But having said that, it's just one of the things where the people that come into City Hall come off of Scotia. A lot of them are off of our Huntington Woods residents coming to Huntington Woods anyway. And if they take that, it's a simple method. It's a simple task just to turn left or to turn right onto Scotia and come in through the parking lot. And the other thing is that it also helps with those of you that have hung around the City Hall for any period of time. A lot of people use that parking lot to evade the traffic signs and, cut through there. It's not unusual at any point in time to see like 50 bikes go flying through there. So the result of it makes a lot of sense to do. And it'll also save us a lot of money as far as the lights and the construction of the lights and the directions of the lights. Involved in this has been TIA, which is a Traffic Improvement Authority. Involved in this also has been our city engineers going through all this. Public Safety Department, Planning Department have gone through this, And again, this has been on our priority list for years. And I remember bringing it up when I wasn't working for the city, as far as trying to find a way for my kids. It was actually safer for me to buy my kids a car and have them drive to Berkeley High than it was to walk. So having said that, this is a welcome addition, but yes, they are closing that.
We need it.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
closing that.
I mean, I was surprised. I have a friend who lives in the corner house across the street from there that used to be the dentist office.
Yep.
And that stop sign there in getting out of Huntington Woods is gonna be much more backed up with only one exit out of the parking lot. And if they wanna go to 11 Mile, they're gonna have to turn. And I was surprised that she didn't know more with the possibility of just going across the street and see what's going on with the light,
But we.
that her driveway's gonna get, you know.
No, we've talked to her, and if it becomes a problem, we'll put a sign, do not block
That's,
driveway.
she and I talked about
Yeah,
that, so
so
we,
that would be something we would do for her. But the people that you're talking about that are lessening it up, those are the ones that cut through the parking lot and try to turn left to beat the people out of Scotia. So that's the problem. Those people that are doing that are the problem. So,
And we're still looking for funding for the lighted crosswalks at like Reynolds.
we were looking for more funding for another one by Reynolds Park.
Yeah.
And part of that has to do with when we came up with this and the grant money, the money that we could find. And, you know, again, thanks to the previous city manager, Chris Wilson, who found us that money and made this a viable project. But, you know, having said that, we wanted to.
Yeah.
So part of this study that we're doing, and every time we do this, like right now, we're gonna be working with Berkeley, Oak Park, Royal Oak, Madison Heights, Southfield on 11 Mile, and slowing the traffic down on 11 Mile and making it easier to traverse it. Those are some of the issues that we're gonna be taking on. And to the extent that there's another round of grant money, and, you know, we don't stop writing, you don't get them all. But we don't stop writing them, we don't stop looking at them. If we feel that this is something that we have a reasonable chance to get, and it's worth expending our resources to do that, none of these grants are 100%, they're matching grants. So you know, you kind of pick your battles, which one am I likely to win? Because in the end result too, is a lot of times you need agencies to help you out in order to make sure that the grant goes through, particularly when you're working with many different communities. There's got to be a central resource for that. Sometimes it's like Tool, like we're working with Tool on some things. You know, Woodward, we just were at Woodward, we just had a meeting yesterday where honestly MDOT actually came to the meeting. So we, you know, there are things that are working on, but at that point in time, there's nothing that we can do so much without MDOT's approval, like on the Woodward one, because it's their property. So with 11 Mile, we've worked very good with Berkeley. Right now, we have a great relationship with Berkeley staff, so we're working towards that.
thank you.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, appreciate everybody's help this evening. Thank you very much.